This is a Roll for the Galaxy review, and we'll be talking a little bit about Roll for the Galaxy Ambition. So, doing a quick review of Roll for the Galaxy. I'll do a short overview of some of the mechanics and setup. It's not going to be complete, but it'll be kind of give you a feel for the game, and then we'll talk about what we like about it and what we didn't like so much. So what we have here is kind of a starting setup. Now, if you played Race for the Galaxy, it's a very similar game. Now, I played both, and I actually prefer Roll for the Galaxy, but other people I know prefer Race for the Galaxy, and we'll talk about why I like Roll for the Galaxy. And part of it is just rolling dice is fun, right? And you're kind of building things with that. So you'll set up with a player screen with a board behind it, with your kind of tableau here and your starting worlds, and actually here, remove one of your dice. So I gotta actually remove that dice, but and then it kind of has your starting stuff with all these symbols. Now we're not going to go over all the symbols because there's a lot of them, and you're gonna have to kind of read them. They're pretty straightforward, but needless to say, I think this is the correct setup. You also get some dice in your cup. We'll talk about how that moves on. So let's get rid of this for the thing. But normally everything behind here would be secret. So normally you would secretly to start the game, you'd secretly roll your dice. So we'll just roll some dice, and then you will essentially line them up behind which one they are to start off with. So you can see here, develop, settle, and produce. Then you take and you select one of these dice to be the phase that you're going to activate, just like in Race for the Galaxy. You choose to activate a phase. So part of this game is just even guessing what other people are going to do. So say I'm like, okay, one more thing I forgot. When you start the game, before we do this, you're going to draw 2 tiles, and you're going to select one as a planet and one as a development. So you can see they're double-sided. And in this case, we'll just say I'm selecting this 2 planet and this 4 development over here. But essentially, these aren't in play, but this is like what you're going to build. So after you roll your dice and you select your phases here, so we'll say, okay, I think I can complete this planet in this round, so I'm going to put this on settle. So this means I'm definitely going to be able to settle, and I'm going to be able to use both these dice for settling. Develop may or may not happen depending upon what someone else chooses. And again, this is all secret behind our screen. There's other actions that let you change this, both up here and other places, which you can read about in a tutorial guide. After everyone does this, you're gonna remove your screen so that everyone can see, and then you're gonna go through and see which phase were activated. If they weren't activated, the dice will assume develop was never activated. It's just gonna go back in the cup. And then for any dice on an activated thing, you will do the action. So in this case, we would put both these dice onto our planet, and we see that the cost is 2, so we'll put it into play. Now, when we put it into play, these dice go on back into our citizenry, and then this one says, when you I gain a military red die when you place this world. So when I place the world, I would take a red die, and it goes, in this case, it goes directly in my cup. Then after we do, we go through all these phases, which, that's the one I had dice for. At the end, we would go and buy our dice essentially back to put in our cup. So you can see here, I only have 1 credit, so I would spend 1 credit, and then I would probably put the alien dice, because that's like one of the best dice in the game. And then we'll go back to 1 credit at the end of that. You always have 1 credit, so you're not completely out of the game. And basically, play is going to progress with that until someone has 12 things out on the table, or you run out of victory point tokens, which you can get from shipping and other things. But I'll talk a little bit about ambition. So ambition adds a couple changes. So ambition, the biggest one is you'll start off with this leader die instead of a home die. So the leader die is a little bit more powerful. and it gives you it'll give you some of these actions where, I think I grabbed the wrong color die, but it'll give you some of these actions where if you use it on this action, instead of going into your tab below, it goes back into your cup automatically. So it lets you recycle your dice a little bit quicker, which is, I think, one of the problems with the game. And we'll talk about that real quick. The other thing that Ambition adds, and probably the best thing it adds, is it adds a lot of additional starting tiles. I feel like the base game has way too few starting tiles. I don't remember the number, but it seemed like very, very little. But Ambition really ups that, and I think maybe another expansion could add some more of those. I think it may add a few more tiles in the bag, but I don't think that much. The other thing it adds is these objectives. So at the beginning of the game, you'll randomly select, I believe it's 5 objectives, and everyone will see them, and this will give you something to work towards. Now, these things are pretty powerful because they give you a bunch of victory points. They're also, and if you look, right, so this one's worth 5 victory point chits. You can see here, I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 total in my whole place. So this is a lot of victory points potentially. The other thing you can use is when you pick up the victory points, they can also be used as dice. So if you're like, oh, I'm 1 dice short away from completing this, you can use those things to go, boom, I have this extra dice, in my assignment phase. So that can be really beneficial. And I think it adds a lot to it. We've seen people win just kind of going for those and really just focusing the strategy on that instead of focused on your strategy with your home worlds that you start out with. So let's talk about the really good things about this game. I think the best thing about Roll for the Galaxy is the rolling dice and assignment phase. Rolling dice is really fun. One of the things is, I think if you got really into this game, you would be paying attention to your probabilities a lot. But what I've found is you just kind of get the probabilities you get, and you just want to keep recycling dice as quickly as possible. The other really cool thing about this game is you get to, you have a lot of tiles to choose from, and you're always building stuff. Like, you'll get more tiles to put in here, and you'll start building more planets, and you can, at any time, put this tile back and say, I don't like this tile. When you do an explore action, you can put the tile back and get a new tile. So you're always kind of able to do something, which is really good. Maybe the last thing about what is really good about this game is that most of the play is simultaneous. So you're not really waiting for people very often. And that really makes the game move fast. I don't think you could have this complexity, or this much complexity in a game if you didn't play it simultaneous. So that's one of the reasons why we played it so many times. Now, we played this game maybe at least 10 times, maybe even 15 times in the period of a few months, because it was that fun. But let's talk about the problems. So probably the biggest problem with the base game that I found is if you're not very careful with making sure you have enough credits, you can get stuck in a place where 1 credit just isn't enough. I don't know what the solution for that is. In Ambition, they improved it by giving these dice that kind of recycle themselves, so they're a little bit more powerful, but you have to use them on these actions that they are useful for. Because there's some sides that this one's like a explore or produce, but if you use it for those, it doesn't go back. Or if you use it on the wild section, it doesn't go back. If you roll the wild. So I think Ambition helped a lot with that problem, but you can still get stuck getting in this money situation. The other problem that I don't think anyone has addressed is we've kind of found that tends to be the winning strategy is building as many cheap things as possible. Now, the reason for that is the game ends when you hit 12 things out, including your first 3. So you only have to really build 9. And if you only build 9 and you build them all 1 and 2 cost things, it doesn't really matter. It's very easy to build these, right? Because you'll be, I roll 1 dice, and you can always choose settle. I build a 1. So every round you're building a new planet. You're getting something usually from building that planet, or getting something from building that low cost tech. Because if you look on the other side, let's see here. Yeah, it'd be a 6 tech, right? That means that you have to store up 6 dice on this thing just to build it. And I don't know if it could even just be a balancing thing where maybe the 1 cost plants are just too cheap. The 1 cost plants in tech are just, they need to be a little bit higher to make it so you kind of have to think about it a little bit more. Or the in-game condition might need to be modified to make it so you have to, once you have 12 and you have so many points, then the game ends, or something like that, right? You have to get to 12 and some minimum number of points. So you can't just build really quickly. I mean, it's roll for the galaxy, but it's race for the galaxy really in a rolling form. So it's kind of a race, but I think if you have one strategy that dominates that much, it kind of limits the game to its full potential. Now we haven't tried playing with like some optional rules and stuff, which might alleviate some of this, which maybe we'll have to bust it out again and play it. But I'm also hopeful that they're going to come up with a new expansion that maybe change some stuff or give like some more direction to it. Kind of like the objectives did give more direction, maybe made it more lucrative to build other stuff as well. But we still found that going for expensive things, even late game, very rarely made sense to anyone, just because they hold so many dice captive. One other problem is that the producing shipping thing is problematic too. Typically, a settled developed strategy seems to work a lot better, because if you're able to, when you produce something, you're going to produce it on a planet. Now I guess I have 1 good here. I can't trade it, but I have 1 good on this planet. When I produce, I'd be able to put goods on this planet because it's yellow, which essentially is I just put this dice on the planet. It sits there. So when you're producing, you're actually storing up these dice again, which you can't use. You can't put them back in your cup. They're stuck on here. And then when you ship everything, they go back into the citizenry. Now, so then when you're shipping, you have to be like, I got to get money because I got to put all these stuff back in my cup. And it makes the without the right tech, it makes it very hard to make that work unless you're in a late game situation, which we already talked about. Rarely you get to, I feel like. So those are the 2 problems. I think it's still an extremely good game. It's really fun. I would highly recommend people trying it out. But you may need to, after playing it, 10, 15 times, you may need to add some sort of changes to the game. I'm sure on Board Game Geek they have stuff that says, okay, we changed the length of the game, or we made it a different victory condition. But again, I highly recommend it. I think it's a really fun game, and I think after people know it, it makes a lot of sense. It's really easy to play, and people love rolling dice, and there's a lot of dice here. And that's just like, I don't know how many, but it's got to be like 50 dice at least, maybe 60. So it's cool stuff. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review. Roll for the Galaxy and Roll for the Galaxy Ambition. And I will try to publish some more reviews here in the next few days.